Good afternoon. Thank you for coming and welcome on behalf of the family to honor the life of Mark Swanson. Let us begin with prayer. Loving and gracious God, we give thanks for Mark Swanson, for all that he was, for all that he did, for the joy that he brought to people's lives, for the wonderful example that he was, for all the fun that he brought. We give thanks. And we know, Lord, that he goes on now, and he has experiences that are so wonderful, even though he leaves his body behind. But we know he's free in spirit and joyful, and at peace and at rest, and we give thanks. And Lord, we ask your comfort on all those who mourn his loss and who will miss him terribly. Be with them and comfort them and grant them peace. And we thank you for that. Amen. So we come together today in funerals and memorials for a threefold purpose: to honor the life of the one that you loved who's passed, to comfort each other in your grief, and to bring closure to the relationship that you had with Mark. I would like to start by a beautiful, simple reading that really describes the process of making that transition from life in the physical body to life eternal. And it's an example based on Mark's love of nature that I think he would appreciate, and it's called Life is Eternal. I am standing at the seashore. The ship at my side spreads her white sails to the morning breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She's an object of beauty and strength, and I stand watching her until at length she hangs like a speck of white cloud just at the horizon where sea and sky meet. Then a moment longer, and someone at my side says, "She's gone." Gone? Gone where? Gone from my sight. That is all. She's still as beautiful and large in mast and hull and spar as when she left my side. She's still as strong and able to bear her load of living weight to her distant port. The loss of sight, her diminished size, is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone at my side says she is gone, there are others watching her approach. Other voices on the far shore that take up the glad shout, "Here she comes!" And that is dying. Indeed, all of us are called to leave behind the physical body and the life that we knew here. But our soul is eternal, and our soul lives on. And Mark now is with those that he loved, who are also in spirit. And he's joyful and he's wonderful. And he's every bit as magnificent, and even more so, than he was while he was here. So I would like to very, very briefly give you a very short synopsis of Mark's life, as I've come to know it from speaking with his family. And then I'm inviting his family to speak a few words about him, to share who he was with you. And as you listen to them and the stories, you will have a deeper and more comprehensive understanding of Mark and the life that he lived here. So Mark was born in Chicago to a family of 8 children, and he taught himself to play the guitar, both acoustic and electric guitar. And he played that guitar at his church with the youth group, and he really loved that and continued playing throughout his life, even as an adult. He was a graduate of Quigley High School and attended DePaul University in Chicago. And Mark was a very intelligent man. He loved spending time building things and creating things. He spent time working in the plastic factories and starting with injection molding, and worked his way up to plant manager and finally engineer. And in the last 10 years, he worked at Wise Plastics Technologies in St. Charles. Now, one of Mark's favorite pastimes was playing pool, and he was on a pool league. And Cheryl, his wife, was also on a pool league, and so they met while they were both playing pool, and they married about a year later, and they were married, would be 33 years in July. Now, Mark had very simple tastes. And he loved anything and everything outdoors. He loved boating, fishing, hiking, camping. And I understand that in one place where he worked, there was even a pond on the premises, and he and his father would spend his lunch hour fishing sometimes. So he loved being outdoors. Family was everything to Mark. He would often spend time with his family doing outdoor things. And he loved spending time with his 2 grandchildren very much. Mark had a great sense of humor, and Cheryl describes him as goofy. And he was known really kind of as the class clown, the archetype of the class clown. He loved to tell jokes and make people laugh. Mark was a very honest man and a very kind man, and he really hated prejudice. And he believed people should be treated by their merits, and he advocated that people be good to each other. And that, I think, is quite a beautiful thing. He loved being in the company of other people, yet Mark also had a serious side. So while he was extroverted, he also liked to keep his own company. He also enjoyed helping people and would help them fix things, but he didn't want anything in return. He did it just for the love of helping people. Mark was solid as a rock, and he'd always be there for you and have your back. And he would talk out a problem with you, but not be offended if you didn't take his advice. And he was strong-willed, a strong-willed man. As Melissa puts it, he's in control, but not controlling. He didn't want people feeling sorry for him during his illness, and he took a very active role in trying to manage that. So that's Mark as I have come to know him, and all of you know him slightly differently, and we will expand your knowledge of him and appreciation for him as his family shares some stories about him. And so I would like to begin the stories with Melissa, if you would be kind enough. And let me just say that anyone who talks, tears are fine, tissues are fine, everything's fine. Okay.
I would like to thank you all on behalf of my mother, my sister, and myself for being here today and to help us get through my father's passing. I've really struggled with what to say today. When Dad was diagnosed with leukemia 4 years ago, I was scared that one day I might be standing up here giving a speech like this. I'm so devastated and heartbroken that cancer ultimately cut his time short with us. I could not have spent the last 32 years with a man like my father and not be broken and having to say goodbye. My dad was a great man. He was my hero. He was the most honest, loyal, hardworking person I know. He was the rock of our family, and we so desperately need one right now. I don't make as good of a rock as he does. His dad would tell you I get way too emotional. Dad, I don't know what we're going to do without you, but we'll try to find happiness. I know you'd want that. And it's going to be hard. Stay with us, and Mom, we need you. We promise to keep your spirit alive, your silliness, your stories, your ridiculous jokes. We can never forget those. For the rest of our lives, we will honor you until we are with you again. Thank you for all the lessons you've taught me. I will pass them on to Sophia and show her what real love is, as you've shown me. I love you so, so much, and we will miss you terribly.
For days I thought about what I could say to bring honor to my dad in these moments. I could tell you loads and loads of information, but I really wanted to share more than just info on Dad's life. I hoped and prayed for the right words to express what Dad meant to me, but all I could come up with was this. I really loved being his daughter. I really, truly loved being Dad's daughter. Every girl wants her father there the day that she gets married. I'm not any different. I know he will be there in my core. You wouldn't miss that for the world. Dad, I'll miss you more than I can ever say. I will miss your little nicknames for my sisters and me. I will miss your trademark mustache and the way you lit up a room when you entered it. I will miss your voice and the horrible, illegible scribblings you call handwriting. Mostly, Dad, I miss you. I can't wait to help teach Nathan and Sophia, and eventually one day in the distant future, my children everything you ever taught me. They will always know how amazing their grandfather was. I will love you, Dad, and we will always love being your daughters.
I wrote a poem for my dad the night that he passed. I won't read it all, it's like 5 pages, but I'll read the good parts. Tonight I'll write for you, Dad, to say all of the things left unsaid. I'm sorry for being that brat that would run away when you called my name. I cannot change the way I behaved in my teenage years. Even I don't understand why I did it. I was selfish to think I could live independently under your roof. I'm sorry for all the times that I closed my door or shut you out. But nevertheless, you showered us with your love. Your love was limitless, and I let myself be blinded by the day by day by day by day until weeks and months passed me by. And I was naive to think that you would always be here like I wanted. I was so used to your smile and your goofy tooth grin, which I loved so much, and all the ways you spoiled us with joy and comfort. You've been my greatest privilege, Dad. You've given us love for your entire life, from all of the sweat-stained muscle shirts and holy blue collars until your peaceful passing. We know you loved us despite our flaws and imperfections and our odd ways. You fought for us for every last minute of your life. I know you wanted to spoil us forever, but now it's time we let you rest in peace. The Amish believe that photographs capture the soul, and I'm starting to believe them, because every time I look at these memories, they remind me and bring me back to a life, remind me of the short but beautiful times we had together. I wish I could have shared more time, energy, love, emotions, and deep, meaningful conversations with you. But your influence is inevitable, and I will always carry you with me in my heart. I hope you've never doubted yourself, Dad, because you've been given us everything. You've done everything within your power to save us, protect us, and love us, which is why we, too, tried so hard to do the same for you. We know that you are a hard-working, honest, caring, compassionate, strong, stubborn old man stuck in your ways. But no matter what, you've taught us to live life with open minds, open hearts, filled with love and forgiveness. And you've taught us to see the beauty and appreciate everything in this world. I will always talk to you and seek you when I need you the most, because you have been and always will be our listening ear, creative eye, and voice of reason, and our guiding light. You were the source of our joy. You made life a vacation while also being the most responsible and important man in our lives. You gave me a strong heart and taught me to be stubborn and to stick up for myself. But you also inspired me to dream big and to pursue all interests that also brought me joy. You've never once judged me for all the unusual hobbies or fandoms that I had, because even you knew that you don't need to understand them in order to love and support me. And that is the greatest gift you have ever given me, Dad, is your unconditional love. And I can only pray you'll stay by my side when I, too, find the love of my life and start my own family. And then this is a part I wrote, the day he passed. I spent 2 hours today staring at a blank television screen, listening to the white noise in my head. And I thought briefly about playing records, Rubber Soul, one of your favorites, or playing the guitar, another one of your favorites. But today I did nothing. I did nothing but sit and reflect, because I didn't feel like anything. And I am nothing without you, Dad. I would not be the person I am today if not for you, which is why tonight I'll write for you, Dad, and tomorrow I will try again. Love always.
I feel I need to first acknowledge that my father would have hated a sappy speech from any of us about him. That being said, I'm relieved in knowing I can't see him rolling his eyes at me while I continue my sappy speech. 29 years, 10 months, and 1 day. That's how long my dad has been present in my life. He's been gone for 4 days. I'm sure you can guess which amount of time feels longer. They say the only 2 guarantees in life are death and taxes. I propose a third, time. Time is what makes the universe work. It's time that gives us life, grows with us from when we are babies to adulthood, and it's time that takes it all away. I would give anything for more time with my dad. Not only for me, but for his perfect grandchildren. All I can do now is be the person he raised me to be. He taught me to love knowledge, to love wholly and completely, and most importantly, to never abandon a good opening for a fart joke. He taught me to love music, the outdoors, and sparked my love affair with the arts. He also taught me about hard work and sacrifice. He taught us to use our minds to do great things, to use our souls to feel great things, and above all, to always find room for love and compassion. Time won't ever fix this hole in my heart where he used to be, but his memories and lessons are part of my very soul, and no amount of time will ever take that away. We rarely think about time until it's gone. We often forget how fast time is passing. But for you, Dad, I hope that every day when I think of you, I can just stop and breathe and think about everything that we have, because I know that's what you'd want. I love you.
My darling, fun, sweet, caring, gorgeous, goofy, adorable Marky. How can you possibly say goodbye to the love of your life? How can you sum up this wonderful man in just a few minutes? The answer is you can't, and you will never. He will always be in the spring breeze, my children and my grandchildren's laughter, and even in the evening sunset. He will remain in my heart, as well as the hearts of his family and friends for eternity. We shall never forget these precious memories that we have shared with this precious man who enlightened our hearts and our minds so thoroughly. When Mark first came into my life, it was love at first sight. I loved his goofy yet caring personality. He was the most brilliant man I have ever known, and I feel honored that he wanted to spend his life with me. He helped lift me to heights I never dreamed that I could accomplish. He kept peace in a house full of women. Now that was really a huge accomplishment. But I guess the thing that impressed me the most is that although he was brilliant and stubborn at times, he was humble and always ready to listen to and help those in need. I think the happiest times in his life were when our daughters and grandchildren were born. Family was everything to him. No matter what he was doing, if somebody needed him, he was there at a moment's notice. And his family, well, nothing would stop him from helping them in every conceivable way possible. And believe me, he was extremely creative. He was so looking forward to the future where we would spend more time together. Actually, this Christmas we exchanged kayaks that we were planning on taking trips together with this summer. As Mark always loved the outdoors, especially the water. We loved taking walks and bike rides together when schedules would allow, as well as enjoying a funny movie together. My greatest regret is that I didn't get enough of this special time together with him. But as I recall the last few months and how sick he was, how he really tried, but his health kept failing. It was a difficult time in his life, as he had always had lots of energy, He was never really sick a day in his life. And he never was in need of others' help. As I saw him fading away, I prayed that God would send his healing angels to help him. But if it was his time, I prayed that God would not let him suffer. While I'm certain that he did not want to leave because he did leave me a sign, I feel that God did not make him suffer. I was there with him for those last days and made sure he was as comfortable as he could be, and that every possible opportunity to remain here. But unfortunately, it was his time, and God did send us a blessing when he allowed me to see the angels coming. It was a difficult time for me, but I was happy for him, as you all should be, that he is home. He is free from pain. He is with his mom, Bobby, Paula, and all those he loved who went before him. And he will always be here with us until the day we join him. Just watch for the signs. Listen to that inner voice of him calling. I guarantee that he is not far from us. We just need to look and listen to find him. I will always love you, my Marquis. Please rest in peace, my love, knowing that I will always love you. I will take care of your children and your grandchildren just as you would have, and that you shall always be with us and close to our hearts until we join you in heaven.
Thank you.
Well, it's difficult to follow all of that. So many things went through my mind, but it's always difficult to put into words any of this. So I'm a little note card, because I know no matter what I would have written, it could never be enough to really capture everything. But I'm always happy, though, that he was so close with my son, his grandson, Nathan, and that Nathan was here earlier. Hopefully some of you at least got a chance to see him. And he definitely reflects the fun, goofy, silly nature that his grandfather always had. And I think that's why the two of them got as close as they did. Anytime that we brought Nathan over, it was absolutely the highlight of his evening. And I'm very thankful that we were able to spend as much time with him as we could, even though we didn't know that this would be as short as it was. But I just wanted to mention a few things, I guess. Things that I enjoyed with him and the fun time that I spent with him, which was never enough, but I'm very glad that I had the opportunity to get to know him like I did. Listening to everybody here, seeing all these pictures and all the stories that have already been shared with me and will continue to share in the future. Just reminds me of how little I really did know him, but I was happy to know what I did. We enjoyed our time fishing on his lake, and it really was his lake. It was his subdivision. He was very much a part of it, and he really enjoyed the time that they had there. And it was great to share that with him. And I brought my canoe over, and we had some good times with that. And he also came with me and explored the area where we moved, and that was really special. I had never done it before, and it was the perfect opportunity, and I'm glad that I seized all the opportunities that I did to spend as much time with him as I did. But he will always be, and always has been, an inspiration to me. in terms of all the dedication that he had to his family. And he was just always there for me, always there for us, always knew what to say, and no matter what, would do whatever he could. And it was more than I would ever have expected from anyone. I felt that even though I only got to know him for the few years that I did, he really did feel like a father to me. And it was very special to have that time with him and have that connection. But I wanted to give an example because I think it's good just to show the level of dedication that he had to his family. I think it was last year our heating went out, and it was around 3 a.m. and we didn't know what to do. We were trying to figure it out, and you know, I didn't want to, but I decided to give him a call and just sort of ask his advice, what we should do. And you know, we didn't want to end up getting swindled by anybody, of course. And I know that he knew so much and was always a wonderful resource. So I called him at 3 a.m. and he said, "Oh, I've got a neighbor right next door who does the HVAC. So you know, I'll let him know and we'll see what's going on and get it fixed." So at 6 a.m., like the earliest he could have shown up, he was over here at our house with the neighbor. Stuck around the whole time and even went out with him to go get the parts and made sure everything was fixed and that we weren't charged too much. And then he offered to pay for it. And I almost had to bug him to try and get him to take it back. And even then, I just kind of had to slip a check into his hand. But I very much appreciated all of the help that he gave us and that he was so willing to give everything, even if he didn't necessarily have it. And I knew that he would be there always, and he always will be, whenever I need him. Just like a father would be. All right, thank you.
I'm Mark's younger brother, John, younger by 10 years and 3 days. And unlike my brother Peter, I don't think Mark ever tried to convince anybody that I was his older brother just because I'm bald. I have to say that I don't have a lot of memories of Mark from my youth. I don't remember my older sister Mary living at home, though I do remember her wedding. I have some vague and random memories of Peter and Mark living at home. What I remember mostly from my early years were fighting with Madonna, Paul, and Ann. I must have been a real pain in the ass. Mary's told me that she saved my hide more times than she can count. So thank you. I've heard the Beatles described this way. John Lennon was the smart one, and Paul McCartney was the cute one, and George was the quiet Beatle. Ringo, well, you know, he had a big nose. If the four Swanson boys were the Beatles, then I say we might be described this way. Peter is the oldest, he's our rock. He puts his arm around you when you're in need, he listens, and recommends. The three younger boys were in the seminary, and Peter ended up the minister. Who knew? Peter's also the organizer. People look to him to make decisions, coordinate events. He makes decisions and things run smoothly. Peter's the glue. Paul. His Native American name would be Still Waters Run Deep. Or maybe it would be the Pacer. Paul assesses the situation from a bit of a distance, sometimes quite literally. Walks around, people talk, he hears, he smiles, he darts in for a comment or two, good comments, smart comments, funny comments, then he heads back to the periphery. I used to believe everything Paul told me when we were young. I mean, everything. Then I would repeat some of those things to other people, and they would look at me like I was crazy. It took me a while to realize that Paul was playing the long con with me. Still waters run deep. We already established that I was the pain in the ass, tied to the chair in the front room, locked inside that folding cot we kept in the house, climbing out the back bedroom window when Madonna made me go to my room when she was watching me, sometimes tormenting Anne, sometimes watching Sven Gouldy Presents Creature Features on Friday nights when Mom and Dad went to the seminary for dinner. You'd have to ask Anne which one she remembers most. Mark. Mark was the quiet Beatle and the smart Beatle. He was the musician and the artist. He was the builder and the scientist. I don't remember Mark talking a lot, but when he did, he was the funniest guy in the room and usually the smartest guy in the room. You might have a good line or two and might consistently have a good line or two, but Mark's were funnier. Mark's were weirder. And as was already pointed out, they always contain flatulence. And really, that's always funny. Here are some random thoughts about Mark, some random memories. I remember going to church one Sunday when Mark's band was playing at what we called the guitar mass. It was so cool to see Mark and his bandmates in the sanctuary. Mark so often on the stand-up bass and sometimes on guitar. I was Mark's brother, and I hoped some of that cool would rub off on me. Anyway, one Sunday I sat in the front row center at Our Lady of Grace in the pew where I knew the band would sit. When there would be some downtime between songs, the band would leave the sanctuary and sit down. That one Sunday, Mark came and sat next to me. At one point, he reached into his pocket and he pulled out a handful of coins and put them in my pocket. I asked him what he was doing, and he said, "I'm giving you some pennies." I smiled. I beamed. This was a windfall. I mean, we were poor. I could buy baseball cards and bazooka bubblegum. He gave me pennies on a few other occasions, too. But that first one was, in my mind, the first random act of kindness that I can remember anybody ever doing for me. When I was in 6th grade, I think, Mark helped chaperone a class trip to Wrigley Field to a Cub game. I couldn't believe he said yes. I have no idea why he went. But what I remember most about that day was how all the girls in my class kept staring at Mark and saying things to me like, "Wow, your brother is so good looking. What happened to you?" Apparently, Mark was also the cute Beatle. As I got older, my memories of Mark are more vivid and varied. I think this has happened when I was in college. There was this time after a Thanksgiving dinner, Mark wanted me to go to Denny's with him. Now? Denny's? We just had Thanksgiving dinner. I was a little confused and not sure what he wanted, but we ended up eating more and talking for a long time. I don't remember at all what we talked about, but I do remember thinking that he was kind of treating me like an adult. And that felt good. There was a time when Mark and Cheryl and Mom and Dad were living in Libertyville, and Mom and Dad went out of town. And I asked if I could have a party at the house. And they said, "It's okay." Mark and Cheryl said, "It's okay." Well, Mark and Cheryl said it was okay. We had a blowout of a party. Quite literally a blowout when my friends were throwing aerosol cans in the fire pit the park made. Boom went the cans. It was awesome. They were so cool about this, Mark and Cheryl. We had a great time. Lots of people stayed the night. All were safe. I hope I thanked you for that. Mark and Cheryl had a lot of good parties in Libertyville. Good music, good food, and family. Music was very important to Mark. You all probably know that Mark and his band cut a version of My Sweet Lord, a memory all of us hold dear who had the privilege of hearing it. Later in life, he would crank Summer Madness by Kool and the Gang, and Billy, I think you brought that, on his fantastic stereo system, telling me that when he did this on somebody else's gear, they blew the speakers, not on Mark's gear. He was a hell of a painter. He did the scene of a green dragon, wounded by a bunch of sword-carrying, armor-clad soldiers. I looked at that painting a million times, wondering how in the world Mark could do that. Where did he come up with that? Who taught him to do that? No idea. There was one time when I watched the movie with Mark at the Libertyville house. He made popcorn. He put so much butter on the popcorn, I could barely eat it. Did he always do that?
Yeah.
I think that was his hoarding thing, right? He knew nobody else wanted it. Obviously, there are other memories too. I'm sure Mary and Peter have loads of them about when Mark was a little boy. I'm certain Madonna and Paul can tell you what it was like with Mark as an older brother who was closer to them in age. I'm positive Ann could tell you what it was like as the youngest to see the older sibs come and go. I'm still trying to figure all this out, what it means to me, and how I can keep those memories and organize them. Maybe make sense of them. This is what I figured out up till now. Mark seemed to make everything better. If he was your friend, you had great times. If he was at your party, the party was better. If he lived there, he made that space better. If you're having a couple of beers with Mark, there were jokes and stories and science and looking at the stars and sharing. It seemed always to me that everybody wanted to be near Mark. They wanted to catch sparks. They wanted to be included in what he was doing. For a guy who was so often quiet to me, it was amazing to see Mark hold a group of people in his hands. His smile made you feel warmer. His love made you feel welcome. If he was your older brother, you sometimes got pennies. Those pennies were gold to me.
Good afternoon. I'm Madonna Ward, and that's my big brother. There was more of a distance between Mark and I than the other every 24-month brothers and sisters, so he got a head start. And I'm here to tell you that that big brother, when I was a little girl, was my arch enemy. For those of you who lived in the Logan Square neighborhood, you could walk from our house on Central Park to the library down Ockyell. About halfway down there was what I think was a Lutheran church with a garden next to it. And as a little bitty girl, the sprawling trees and the perfect flowers, it was just, oh, it was like the secret garden. We were coming back from the library one day, and my wonderful big brother had told me that the marker under that beautiful tree, which was thanking the church club that had built the park, was a tombstone, and there was a vampire that lived there, and he would eat you, and it was all. And of course, being the warm guy he was, he left me there. But I got over it. We had my grandfather's city double-back porch, and at one point, Grandpa got around to enclosing it. I see all the trendy stuff as you go down the L now and what they've done with back porches in Chicago. Thunderstorms, lightning storms, never failed. Mark would drag me up them stairs and let me sit on the landing in the storm, and it just terrified me. We'd go down Fullerton Avenue, was it Reese Park Pool? Is that, what's at the end of Fullerton Avenue? And I was a target. How long can we hold her down underwater before she can breathe? Now, I have vague memories that I might have provoked some of this. He used to breathe my air in the back of Dad's car. You know, he'd breathe my air close to me, and it was awful. And the brownie thing. You know, Mark had a thing about brownies. And he'd make them and hide them. Or if Mom would make them, he'd eat them all. And I never got a brownie. That was lousy. But I also have to tell you, as a little girl, he was my hero, too. He was my Halloween hero. They would have 2 or 3 costumes lined up. And they didn't use a pumpkin. They didn't use a plastic bag. He brought a pillowcase. And he'd do like a grid search of the neighborhood to get who had the best candy bars. And we're not talking the little miniatures. He wanted the big Snickers, the big Milky Ways. We had somebody that used to give away current comic books. And he'd come home after about an hour and a half, and that sack would be, pillowcase would be full. Change clothes and do it again. After about an hour and a half, he'd come home and change clothes and do it again. One of the neatest things he ever did, you've heard him, people talk about his creativity. It was a cold, rainy day in this nasty old basement in the house on Central Park. Great big oil drums and, a nasty place. He took the screens that they had to put up every spring and take down every fall and built the body of a jumbo jetliner, okay? And all of the electronic devices, the old radios and anything that had lights, he built into a cockpit. And it had, remember the orange plastic bucket chairs from the 60s and 70s? Those were in the cockpit. He had seats lined up, and he'd get me and Patty Mike and some of the other kids from the neighborhood in the back of that plane, and it was, we never hit the ground in that plane. Snow Fork on Central Park, was it 1963?
67.
67? I've never seen anything like it. They built you could crawl through it across Central Park. Him and maybe Peter and some of the other boys went out back and shoveled the snow up against the back of the house. And would jump off the second story into the pile of snow. And they wouldn't let me, and I wanted to so bad. John talked about stereo. I can remember getting my own apartment, and I really wanted to have, bachelor night. I wanted to have a nice stereo. And he says, Madonna, let me tell you, spend $150, $200, your ears aren't good enough to hear the difference with the good stuff. And he's right. He also introduced me to what he thought would be the poet laureate of the United States one day, Rod McEwen. See, he wasn't right about everything. He had a strength and a courage in a crisis in his young adult life that we all lived through that set the standard for the rest of us. And sometimes he let me have some of the brownies. I got 2 quotes, because eulogy requires 2 quotes. Garrison Keeler, who's been a friend of mine for Saturday nights for 35 years. I read this and I said, oh gosh, this is him. The highlight of my childhood was making my brother laugh so hard that food came out of his nose. I can't, there have been some flatulate jokes, but I'm not going to go there. On a more serious note, from a real poet laureate, Maya Angelou. I don't believe an accident of birth makes people sisters or brothers. It makes them siblings, gives them a mutuality of parentage. Sisterhood and brotherhood is a condition people have to work at. I charge everybody in this room to work at it. I love you, Mark. The world is a much smaller place today.
We have 10 for 1 or 2 more family members.
I'll keep it short. Short and sweet, the way Mark likes it. He really had a great sense of humor, that's for sure. What can you say that hasn't been said? I'm Bill Collins. Mark was my cousin, my friend, my mentor. I'll start at the beginning, and this won't take long because I know everybody's been here a while. We grew up on Central Park. We went through grammar school together, high school together. Over the years, my parents would look out the window and watch me cross the street on Central Park, and his mom would watch him cross the street on Central Park so we could play together, and sometimes we'd be on opposite sides and had nobody to play with. And like Madonna mentioned, we actually built an airplane in the basement of your apartment out of scrap materials, and I really believed it could fly. Mark built it to fly. It didn't, but that was because he said the air density was not quite optimal. And in Mark voice, to facilitate lift. Perhaps if I adjust the ailerons, that will compensate, and now I'll fly. When they tore up Fullerton Avenue, I guess you guys remember there was concrete everywhere. We made the Flintstone houses, and he had the sofa and the love seat, the chair, the radio. Later on, hanging with my brother Bob, we enjoyed watching Soundstage on television on Channel 11, and that's where we learned about the Doobie Brothers and Kool and the Gang, and we all just enjoyed the music with each other. I realized early on that Mark was a special person. I know everybody says that at these sort of things, but this was true. He had a beautiful mind. Not the Russell Crowe kind, but that wonderful gene that he inherited from the Collins side. I'm saying she had it, my dad had it, he had it. It made flying with the Eagles especially difficult when you're surrounded by so many turkeys. But Mark flew even higher because he knew the aerodynamics. He figured out how to fly. He could outclass, outsmart all the others. He'd sometimes say to me, brains over brawn, mind over matter. He could tell you the aerodynamic characteristics of an F-15 fighter pilot or an F-150 pickup truck. He could explain how to contain cold fusion reactions or the periodic tables over his favorite nectar of the gods. That was just a little early times ginger ale and a twist of lemon in it. He had a beautiful mind. He was a beautiful man. He was my friend, my cousin, and my great loss. God rest your weary body, Mark. Your mind, your soul soars now unconstrained in that makeshift plane you built. Save a seat for me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Wonderful, wonderful stories about a wonderful, wonderful man. And I know you have a much better picture of him, a more complete picture of the fun, intelligent, caring person that Mark was. And so I invite you as you go forward, he's going to be a big loss in your life without him. But remember him. Remember to comfort each other. Remember to call the family and say, especially on important days, I'm thinking of you. We've got Father's Day coming up. Tell them, the children, I'm thinking of you. I'm holding you in my heart. Remember Mark with fondness always, always, always. Tell stories about him. Keep his memory alive, as it will be, always. And he will be with you when it's time to get married and more children come along. He'll be there. He'll be there. And he'll be with you, Cheryl. He'll be there when you pass over. He'll be there in the times in between. I have no doubt. So we give thanks. We give great thanks for this wonderful, wonderful man, dear Lord. And for all the joy that he brought to everyone, for the intelligence and the good times, the laughter, for the companionship, for the support. We give great thanks. And we know that he goes on now. His soul is in heaven. It's beautiful. It's peaceful. It's loving. He's with the people that he loves and adores. And he'll be there when those he loves here, when they also join him there. So we bless his soul, and we know he's at peace. And we bless everyone here, and we affirm that your spirit of comfort and peace rests within their heart. Please help their sorrow, turn it into comfort, turn it into peace. And we give thanks. Thank you, God, for Mark Swanson. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, go in peace. This concludes our service.